Hi, welcome to our live Facebook chat this afternoon, where please say we've got Joe Blakely from Wellbeing. I'm Kate Foster from the Careers Zone. I'm a careers consultant in the Careers Zone. What we're going to have a talk about today is the subject around disclosing a disability, both during the recruitment process and also when you're in the workplace as well. So Joe, just a question for you. Do I have to disclose a disability or longer term health condition to a future employer? Am I obliged to do that?
Disclosing a disability is an individual decision, and there's no obligation to do so. The decision to disclose is a personal one, and there's no right or wrong answer about it. However, with information, you can make an informed choice about whether to disclose and feel confident in the decision that you've made. So that's why we're having this webinar, really, so we can give you some information so that you can make a decision about whether you wish to disclose and when. It's just worth saying as well that there may be times where you are required to disclose a disability. Some jobs, for example, such as in healthcare settings, may have standards such as fitness to practice, and then there may be obligations where you do have to disclose due to professional standards.
And if I do have a disability or a longer term health condition, Joe, what would be the benefits of disclosing?
So there are a number of benefits of disclosing, and they sort of sit within the Equality Act. So the Equality Act 2010 gives rights to people with protected characteristics, and it requires employers to consider whether reasonable adjustments are required to put a person with a disability on a level playing field. So it provides protection for disabled people, and in order to be eligible for that protection under the Equality Act and to get reasonable adjustments, you will need to inform your employer that you do have a disability, so you will be required to disclose. So examples of reasonable adjustments, which we will talk a little bit more about a bit later, but maybe allowing someone to be absent to attend treatment, extra equipment such as computer equipment and software, and more flexible working hours. So just going back to the Equality Act. So the Equality Act 2010, as I said, gives certain rights to people with certain characteristics, which includes a disability. The Equality Act states that you're disabled if you have a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial and long-term negative effect on ability to do normal daily activities. So mental health difficulties are classed as a disability where there's been a significant impact on a person's daily life and where it's lasted or likely to last for 12 months. And by significant and substantial, it means more than trivial, and long-term is lasted for a year or likely to. So that does cover and include quite a lot of us with health issues that we may not consider to be classed as a disability. There can also be a fear that if we disclose we have a disability, we'll be treated differently or discriminated against. And the Equality Act 2010 makes that unlawful for employers to discriminate against you. So other benefits may include that some employers actually do really want to employ disabled people. Disabled people may have additional skills and resources, such as developing resilience. Also, another benefit of disclosing is that there's money to pay for adjustments and changes. So when you start a job, you can apply for the Access to Work scheme that's run by the Job Centre Plus. And this is money to help, this is money for extra help to pay for the cost of any equipment, support workers, transport costs. And employers may be able to access devices and support on how to make changes in the workplace as well to help a disabled person to do their job. Another benefit of disclosure is that it may help build better working relationships, as working relationships are usually better when people are open and people have disclosed. Also, employers do have equal opportunities policies, so they have a commitment to be fair to everyone. And rest assured that your information is confidential, is personal and sensitive data, and so it cannot be passed on without your agreement.
Okay, and I think also other benefits of disclosing a disability could be around possibly being able to, during the recruitment process, explain gaps in your study, and also putting into context your academic achievements as well, if there's been mitigating circumstances maybe. And Joe's already mentioned about the equal opportunities policies. So a big dilemma, I guess, facing students is finding supportive employers. So quite often, if you're doing your research into the type of employer that you want to work with, there are disability positive campaigns like the 2 Ticks campaign, but also looking and doing your research into an organisation in terms of do they have an equal opportunities policy will also indicate that, you know, they're perhaps going to be a more supportive employer to you as well. So it can really help with your choice of employers. When's the best time to tell a future employer then, Jo, and disclose, do you think?
Well, you could tell a future employer and disclose your health, your disability at any stage in the application process. So you could do it on the application form. There may be a health questionnaire. You could do it on an equal opportunities form. If you do a covering letter personal statement, you could mention it there and disclose. You could disclose before the interview, at the job offer stage, and once in post.
Okay, so it's quite a lot of different opportunities to do that. Yeah.
By disclosing your disability, you allow your potential employer or current employer to put support in place so that potential problems can be alleviated or prevented or managed. So it's worth thinking about that, especially in relation to when you do disclose. If you do need to consider any adjustments for the interview itself, perhaps then it's worth thinking about disclosing prior to that to allow that to happen. So generally, an employer cannot ask about health or disability before an offer of a job is made, and they shouldn't ask questions about health at an interview stage. But an employer may ask about health on the application form in order to find out whether you need any reasonable adjustments for the application process. They may ask, for example, for you to contact them if you're disabled and require any adjustments for an interview. They may also ask on the application form to find out and ensure that they are receiving applications from a diverse group. They might ask to find out if you can do some tasks that are central to the job. If there is some tasks that are particularly required for that job and are necessary for that job, they may be able to ask. And also, as we mentioned earlier, if it's a regulated profession, so if there's fitness to practice or professional requirements. So really you can choose when you do disclose, but rest assured that the reason for disclosing is that if your disability or there is a feature of your work that causes a disadvantage because of your disability, then the employer has a duty under the Equality Act to make adjustments to avoid the disadvantage, e.g. changes to your working area, working hours, being allowed time off for treatment, reallocating tasks temporarily, working from home. But it does require on you disclosing that to the employer. And all of these adjustments that we're talking about under the Equality Act mean that they need to be reasonable. You've heard of used that term before, so the employer will need to consider if they are reasonable in relation to the workplace and your specific requirements.
Okay, thanks, Jo. So would my future or my work colleagues be informed of my disability?
Yes. Okay, so that's quite a straightforward answer. The answer is no, they won't. Information about health and disability is protected by the Equality Act and the Data Protection Act. It's personal and sensitive data and information that cannot be passed on without your agreement.
Okay, so I guess it would be your choice whether you did want to tell your work colleagues, wouldn't it? If you felt that was appropriate and you're happy to do that. And what's the best way to disclose and be open about a disability or longer term health condition, do you think?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I mean, if you do decide to tell your employer, you'll need to think about how and when to tell them, and also who to say it to.
Yeah.
So again, it's an individual decision based on your circumstances. It may be helpful to have a doctor's letter or some form of evidence to support that. And then think about how much information you do want to give, how much you're willing to share, and who you want to share it with. And also why you want to share it. So think about some of the things that may be helpful for you in the workplace. It may also be helpful if the evidence that you have explains how your disability affects you and any adjustments that may be helpful, or any that you've had in the past. So if you do have anything like that, that would be helpful. Otherwise, it would be helpful for you to be able to share that with your employer. So you can discuss with your employer about your health or disability. They may refer you to occupational health. Occupational health advisors help employers to understand what reasonable adjustments would be helpful at work. And they may also assess your ability to do the job. So just some sort of key points to think about when telling people about your health or disability. It might be helpful to focus on things that you've learned through being disabled, what skills that you've learned and what you use. Also, we can sometimes assume that an employer might see disability as a negative thing. We'd encourage you not to view it in that way, because, as we said earlier, some employers do actively want to employ disabled people and do see it as a positive thing. Also, knowing and talking about disability can be seen very much as a strength. So as we said earlier, you do have additional skills.
Okay. So now we're thinking about adjustments that could be made during the recruitment process if you do decide to disclose. So Joe's already talked about when to disclose. The key thing is working with your potential employer during the recruitment process. You know yourselves better than anybody, and perhaps the help and support that would enable you to perform effectively during the recruitment process. And we talk quite a lot about making sure that you are on a level playing field with the other candidates. So it is advisable to work quite closely with the employer and perhaps think about possibly the support that you're already receiving through the university. So that could be particular equipment that you're using. It could be maybe getting extra times, during tests, during exams, anything that you feel that is going to really help you. So do give them some leading time to be able to put those reasonable adjustments, as Joe said, in place, and think about the support that you're getting. So it could be, for example, with a lot of the large graduate recruiters will use online psychometric tests. So it might be that they are able to give you extra time to complete those that stage of the recruitment process. It might be that they decide actually that's not an appropriate way of testing your skills, perhaps in numeracy or literacy or situational judgments. So they might have other tasks, other exercises that you could do at a later stage. It may be perhaps if you're getting through to the latter stages of the recruitment process and you might be expected to do a presentation or a group discussion. So again, if they are aware, they may be able to put alternative exercises in place for you. So I think the key message is don't worry about it. Please come and talk to us at the Career Zone if you'd like to talk about individual cases, but keep in contact with the employer through every stage of the recruitment process, because at the end of the day, they do really want you to succeed and do really well.
It's okay, I just wanted to ask you a question. So if I disclose, will it affect my chance of success during the recruitment process? Yeah,
and that's a really common question that I do get asked by students. And the simple answer is no. As long as the employer is aware of perhaps adaptations and adjustments they can make. As I said before, it's just ensuring that you are in a space where you can perform to your best ability and have the opportunity to demonstrate your potential to the employer through the recruitment process, that you have got the skills and the attributes, of which you will have many, to enable you to perform in the job. So no, it definitely won't affect you during the recruitment process, but that is a very common question that I do get asked, understandably. So thinking now about when you're actually in the workplace, Jo, are some workplaces more supportive than others, do you think, of disability and longer term health conditions?
I mean, yes, some employers are more supportive and will promote that they are so. So some employers will be part of the Disability Confidence Scheme, which includes a badge which shows that the employer has made commitments. And the commitments may be such as making sure that the recruitment process is fair. Also, it's supporting an employee who becomes disabled to stay and work. and offering work experience to disabled people. And Kate, you mentioned earlier about the 2-tick scheme. So some employers may have the positive about disabled people symbol, which is a 2-tick sign. If an employer displays the 2-tick symbol, it means they've signed up to be positive about disabled people. They also have obligations to current employees, such as raising awareness around disability issues and helping people to stay in employment. So if a job advert, so when you're applying for jobs, if you have a look at the job advert and if you see that it has either of these symbols, it means that disabled people are guaranteed an interview if you meet basic requirements listed in the advert.
Yeah.
So Kate, what support is available in the workplace for employees with a disability or a longer-term health condition?
Okay, and we've touched on some of these things when we were talking about adjustments through the recruitment process as well. But a whole range of support is available once you're in the workplace, and that can range from specialist equipment and technology to things like adjusting your working hours. A lot of employers now work flexibly. Again, Jo mentioned it could be about having time off to attend appointments. So I think the key thing is working with the employer once you're in post to enable you, again, to perform most effectively in your job. And as Jo mentioned, there is some funding available through the Access to Work Fund, which is managed by Job Centre Plus, I think. So, the cost, there's not to worry about the cost that is going to be on the employer, which again could be another reason for thinking about not disclosing. There is funding out there that the employer can access to help you, and it could be travel costs. Maybe you need a taxi to get to work, or disability friendly access in terms of parking spaces. But I think as much information as you are happy to disclose to the employer will really help them put adjustments in place for you.
And just another question, Kate. So will my disability affect my chances of promotion and limit career progression?
So again, the answer to this is definitely not. It's thinking about the strengths that you've got, the skills that you have got, and some of those can be demonstrated through you overcoming setbacks, your disability, managing your longer term health condition. Career development may be an area that you might want to think about discussing. During the recruitment process, maybe, at the end of the interview section when employers have asked you lots of challenging questions, it's your turn then to put them on the spot a little bit and ask questions. So thinking generally about your career development and career progression, that's a really good time to discuss that. Because at the end of the day, when you're going through a recruitment process, it's not only the employers testing you out and thinking about whether you're the right person for their job and their opportunities, but it really is a chance for you to think about, well, actually, are they going to be a supportive employer? Are they going to be supportive in terms of my disability and longer term health condition? And are they going to support my career progression and development as well? So those sorts of things will all help you decide whether it is the right decision for you to really accept any job offers with that employer.
Okay. And also the Equality Act 2010 provides protection for this, doesn't it?
It does,
well?
definitely. So that's really
you can't
important.
be discriminated against because of a disability.
Okay, thank you, Jo, and thank you for listening. Please do look out. We've got lots of information on the Career Zone website under our Supporting Equality and Diversity section around disclosing disability, and very much touching on some of the topics and discussions we've had today. We're also going to be doing some webinars on disclosure as well, so please do look out for those dates. They'll all be advertised on the events part of my Career Zone, so please do sign up for those events as well. But thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much.